Those that are on the webinar today, as mentioned, have the chance to work with the best of the best and for multiple providers. And today, Sholom will kind of get a chance to walk you through why Anthos is such a special tool in our platform that we can leverage and help our customers. So Sholom, I'll give it all to you, and I'll stand by to ask and answer questions as needed.
Thank you, Wayne. And I just want to make sure you can see my screen. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. And I'm excited to join with Wayne in discussing Anthos, which is Google's Cloud's application modernization platform. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about what makes Google Cloud Anthos different, how it helps customers on their journey to application modernization, and how it can help you and your organization along your modernization journey. So 94% of CIOs indicated that business leaders depend on technology teams for improved agility and faster time to market. Yet, even though there's such a critical dependency on technology teams, most CIOs also indicated how critical it is and how important it is for them to be able to unlock the value of their technology in accelerating their time to market and delivering what their applications are to their customers. And many of them that I talk to and that I've spoken to technology teams struggle to, what does that journey look like? Even though we all know that we're trying to modernize, like how do we accelerate that? How do we unlock the technology that we can deliver to the business so that they're able to take full advantage of what they're trying to do? I often think of developers and what developers are trying to accomplish. Developers just want to develop. They don't want to think about the underlying technology. But many technology teams are responsible for making sure that the lights stay on, making sure that everything works at 2 a.m., that there are no phone calls. And so this kind of, consistent connection between developer and operations, in operations being able to deliver something that's capable to the customers, and the developers being able to unlock the tools and the capabilities that they're looking for is, what I consistently see in the market. Sorry, it's getting away. All right. So organizations are therefore increasingly adopting modernization solutions. So 59% of customers want to modernize. 87% of organizations want to run containerized applications, and I'd argue that that keeps moving up and up as containerized applications become the norm and the standard. And then 9 out of 10 enterprises today are operating in hybrid and multi-cloud environments. Now, if you ask customers, do you want multi-cloud? Is multi-cloud a thing? Is multi-cloud a trend that we want to continue? That's an argument and a discussion that people often have, but the reality is that enterprises today are operating in those worlds. Like I'm working with customers that have their data distributed across multiple clouds between on-prem and the cloud, and due to regulations and other reasons, they have to remain there. Well, if my data is in one place due to data gravity, in many cases, I therefore need to have my applications close to my data, which means that I can't guarantee that all my applications are going to stay in a single cloud. And a multi-cloud becomes a reality that most organizations have to deal with. And greater than 75% of all workloads are still on-prem today. And so sustained success requires scaling to peak performance. Customers need to scale your business, you need to scale your teams, and you need to scale your technology to be able to meet that goal that we discussed about earlier, where CIOs want to modernize their technology and deliver it to their business. And so the scale that comes with modernizing applications is critical to the success. An easy example of this is, going from the classic agile framework to one where you move to CI/CD. So think about it. Many customers starting out, they're going maybe 1 month to releases. Maybe you want to move to 2 weeks releases, but imagine going to multiple releases per day. How much does your technology stack and does your technology capabilities have to change for that to be a reality. If I want to go from 1 month to 2 weeks, so I just kind of speed up everything I have in place. I speed up my code reviews, I speed up my deployments, I speed up my testing, I speed up my QA, I get better tools. Sure, that's something you can do. But if I want to do multiple releases per day or multiple releases even per week, well, so many things need to get automated for that to happen. You can't really do manual security testing when things have to be released multiple times per day. So many things need to become automated. Customers need to rethink how they're delivering things. And there are tools that have evolved over the years as CI/CD has become more prevalent, as customers want to deliver so many smaller releases and smaller chunks per day. And these tools have made it possible for customers to actually build and deploy things in a rapid means. A great example is Kubernetes. Kubernetes allows you to deliver your code in a rolling fashion. So you're able to roll out updates, and you're able to do it really quickly, and you're able to automate many of the capabilities. Similarly to Kubernetes, which is an easy example, there are tools that have been adopted by our customers that Anthos enables customers to use that can help you reach that peak performance that we discussed. So what does it look like? Well, we, using the Dora tool and at Google Cloud, we surveyed customers, and there are 208 times more frequent code deployments that customers in a peak performance are delivering. And they're going 106 times faster from commit to deploy when they're in peak performance. And the time to recover from incidents for these peak performers is 2,604 times faster. You might ask yourself, why? Like, why does the time to recover from incidents happen faster? Well, when you're introducing a large amount of change into an environment that many customers are accustomed to. So if you say have a 2-week or a month sprint, well, all those changes go into effect at the same time, or even sometimes longer, 6 months, 12 months, those changes become harder to find and resolve. Whereas if it's a smaller change, you can look, okay, I only changed this small piece of code. How can I back that out? How can I go make those changes? And then there's a 7-time lower change failure rate because of the small amount of code changes, less dependencies, less things that can break in the stack. So with all that background, I want to talk to you about Anthos. What is Anthos, and how does this help you meet your goals of modernization? So Anthos lets you build and manage modern hybrid and multi-cloud applications without infrastructure lock-in. What does this mean? You can build it once and run it to run anywhere across all your on-premises infrastructure and across your major cloud providers. So you build it once, it's Kubernetes, it's open source, and you can deploy it to Google Cloud, to all major clouds, to on-premises data centers, and be able to deliver your application consistently in a manner that is easy to roll out wherever your application needs to live. Really embracing that multi-cloud and that hybrid cloud that we see a reality in today's world. So let me jump into it a little more. Google Cloud offers an end-to-end solution for application modernization, of which Anthos is a part of it. So we have tools that can help customers throughout the journey of application modernization. Let's start on the left side of this image that you see in front of you with the Analyze. We help customers analyze their deployment, their development today using a tool we call Google Cloud Camp. Camp is based on the Dora assessment I mentioned earlier. With associated, it helps customers understand where are they today. How effective are you in being able to move to that more modern application modernization plan? How effective are you in speeding up the deployments to your application? How effective are you in resolving issues? And we take that information and then we use that to help guide customers on a modernization plan that they can adopt in modernizing their application development lifecycle and how they develop applications. From there, we're talking about customers that can code in Cloud Code, which is a tool that's built for customers to build, is an IDE for developing their code to deploy on top of Google Cloud. We also offer Migrate for Anthos, which is really a really nice way for customers to get to containers. Part of the container world is, do you want to modernize your application and rebuild it, or do you want to take an existing application and modernize it? When taking an existing application and modernizing it, there's a lot of different pieces that come into it. And in many cases, customers just want to take the existing application and run it inside of Kubernetes. There's a lot of benefits that you get by running an application in Kubernetes, from lifecycle management to many other abilities that Kubernetes and Anthos allows you to adopt. But to get to Anthos being primarily a container application platform, customers need to get to a container platform. And Migrate for Anthos helps customers do that. It's a really full-featured tool that allows you to run through the pipeline for taking a VM, turning it into a container, and being able to run it on top of Anthos while still keeping many of the VM pieces that were required to actually run it in a container application. Once it's in a container application, now you're running on Anthos. Customers can use Cloud Build, which takes a application that's checked into a repo, and then we'll go through and do the builds. It's a serverless application that runs on Google Cloud that allows customers to build their applications from source code. Now, not only does it run on Google Cloud, but it also, being part of Anthos, can run in any cloud or can run on-prem, with Cloud Build, which is serverless, and will then go through and build your application depending on the steps that you determine. Once it's built, you're depositing it into a container registry. Google offers Artifact Registry, which is a really robust artifact registry, and not only can store container images, but can also store application jar files, application files in whatever format they're in. And this artifact registry can then be used to manage the different versions of it, can also be used to scan it for issues, can also ensure that all applications that run in your environment are signed so that they're secure. So you're actually gaining application security from that. And then that really comprises the CI part, or what most customers consider the CI part, where it's building your application, getting it checked into an artifact registry. And then also important, and very important, is the run part. And the way we offer to run customers' application, you can either do CloudRun, where it's a serverless platform that's able to run again on Anthos, which means it's not only limited to living in Google Cloud, but it also runs in other clouds and on-prem. And GKE, which is Google's Kubernetes Engine, which we were talking about earlier, which allows you to deploy it in a containerized fashion on top of Google Cloud and many other clouds that we'll talk about it a little more later. And then finally, Apigee ties it all together by giving you API lifecycle management and being able to deploy and manage the APIs that your application needs to operate. And then once it's running your application is running on top of Anthos, we also take care of the operation part and the SRE part, which is cloud monitoring, cloud logging, to be able to log all application information, all metrics, and be able to provide you a seamless and single pane of glass of what is your application looking like and where is it running. And no matter where it's deployed, you get a view of the application level metrics and how well it's working. And we'll get into that in a little bit.
Sholom, could I add one quick thing?
Yeah, sure.
So we typically think about you as a customer. We know you have your preference, your hyperscalers, but one thing that we're really trying to do is make sure that we give you the integration, the ability, and to allow you to simplify how your applications work. whether that's across one cluster in a container and also Kubernetes specifically, and then more so whether you want to take that and extract it and make it even more broad. So a lot of this application modernization is really designed with the tools that Sholom is showing you on the screen to make your day jobs a little easier.
Thank you, Wayne. So what are some of the components of Anthos? We're going to get into them a little bit, but at a really high level, Anthos enables customers to deliver application management, infrastructure automation, end-to-end observability, and compliance and governance. And we deliver these key capabilities, which are core to running applications in a Kubernetes environment across all of these environments that you see down below, whether it's Google Cloud, AWS, Azure, vSphere, customers are running bare metal servers inside of on-prem data centers, as well as attached clusters, which is environments where you're not even running a Google-specific Kubernetes version. We're able to manage those Kubernetes clusters as well and provide similar application management, infrastructure automation, end-to-end observability and compliance and governance across all of these environments, whether you're running Google-specific Kubernetes Engine, which is an option and delivers a lot of capabilities and interesting features that we'll talk about in a minute, as well as simply running standard Kubernetes environments. GCP and Google Cloud is a leader in multi-cloud container development platforms. We've been at Kubernetes for quite a while. From an application modernization standpoint, Google is the pioneer of Kubernetes, and GKE specifically, which is our automated Kubernetes engine available on Google Cloud, was launched in 2015. And as such, we've been at this for a while. So where we receive a score of 4 and above out of 5 in key criteria such as platform experience and container native app development, customers who are looking for modernizing their application and also want to be able to live in a world that's reality, which is multi-cloud, and don't want to shut off and commit to a single environment, those customers have been choosing Google Cloud. And Forrester Wave recently recognized Google Cloud for its strength in these areas. So what are the Anthos platform components? What makes up Anthos that makes it deliver the capabilities that I mentioned earlier? So there are a couple of different capabilities. I'll start with an Anthos cluster. So an Anthos cluster is made up of GKE, which is our Kubernetes engine, and then we're layering on top of that the ability and these capabilities that deliver multi-cluster management. So there's policy management, which is a ACM, Anthos Config Management, that I'll talk about separately. There's service management that delivers an Anthos service mesh that allows customers to connect seamlessly to their applications. There's the Anthos Connect Gateway that allows you to manage multiple clusters together and group them into a single space and deliver that single pane of glass I mentioned earlier. And then on top of that, customers and then there's operations and management. But then on top of that, there's application development. So CloudRun for Anthos, which is serverless and the ability to run serverless applications anywhere, not only in Google Cloud. The ability to leverage hybrid AI, where you can deploy your models into multiple environments. The GCP Marketplace and Cloud Build that I'll talk about. So let's dive into these different components, what they are, and why they matter. So Google Kubernetes Engine GKE provides the best Kubernetes experience on the planet. We have a record-breaking 15,000 node scalability for a single cluster. Now you may be wondering, well, why do I need 15,000 nodes? And the real answer is most customers don't have this need. But we built it because there was a very large customer of ours that had the need within a single cluster to build massive scale. And so we worked with that customer to build this massive scale to be able to unlock their capabilities and their needs to work on Google Cloud. And this kind of goes back to our ability to be a leader, whether you need it or not. You're working with somebody, you're working with Google, who has the ability to deliver this, and knowing that there's no ceiling and knowing that there's no limits in regards to being able to deploy Kubernetes applications is really key to customers. AI driven. So Kubernetes, it's gotten a little easier over the years, but I remember, trying to deploy Kubernetes, just getting a cluster up and running, in an on-prem environment historically has been difficult. Sure, cloud providers had made it easier to automate the delivery of a Kubernetes cluster, but it's not only can I get my cluster up and running, it's what happens when it's up and running? How do I scale my cluster? What happens when one of my nodes breaks? How do I detect that the node is broken? How do I remove that node from my cluster and ensure that workloads stop running on it? And how do I upgrade my nodes? As you may be aware, working with Kubernetes, Kubernetes releases new versions of Kubernetes. Once a quarter is a major version. And being that that's the case, making sure that your Kubernetes environment stays up to date, not only from a feature standpoint, but also from a patching standpoint and from a security standpoint, ensures that you can stay with your clusters, which means that scaling clusters, which happens often, repairing clusters, which happens often, and upgrading clusters, which happens often, is a key capability that is needed for you and your team to manage. The Google Cloud takes a lot of that headache out of customers' hands. In fact, in many cases, customers don't even have to think about these items, because you can say, pick a release channel. You could say, I always want you to keep me on the stable version of Kubernetes, of GKE, and we will automatically update and upgrade your clusters so that you're up to date and you're ready to deliver the applications that you need. We also have GPU and TPU integrations. Customers working to build AI workloads on Google Cloud typically use GPUs and TPUs to accelerate the AI and the ML modeling that's being done. And we're able to integrate GPU and TPU into Kubernetes, into GKE to deliver that. And then there are dozens of unique security features. We can get into them, but there are many unique security features of GKE that enable a higher level of security from a securing what needs to be secured, not opening things up and just kind of keeping segmentation between different clusters and different workloads within the cluster. There's a lot of capabilities built in there as well. Now, initially, GKE was a Google Cloud specific item, and you could only get it by being on Google Cloud. Now, because of Anthos, we're able to take this capabilities and these really strong features that customers have loved, and we've deployed it outside of Google Cloud. So now we have the ability to deliver it on top of Azure, on top of AWS, on-prem. You can have all these capabilities and a seamless integration between them all. The Unified Management Hub, which I spoke about earlier, is the ability to connect all your clusters and all your workloads together. Kubernetes is very much defined by the cluster view of everything in my cluster I can see. I can manage everything in my cluster as a single unit. Well, that's really great, but what happens when you need to leave your cluster and you need to run multiple clusters? Many organizations, especially enterprise organizations, are going to have multiple clusters. Whether it's in different regions, whether you want to reduce the blast radius, so you don't want to have all of your items relying on a single cluster, whether you're running into scaling limits of a certain cluster. We need to think beyond the cluster. We need to think about workloads holistically. Well, my application is my application, whether it's running in North America, whether it's running in Europe, whether it's running in APJ, it's my application. I want to have a single view that tells me how my application is running, not how my cluster is running. And that's one of the key capabilities that the Unified Management Hub, that is the Google Cloud Gateway, that allows you to connect all your clusters into a single management hub and give you a single pane of view to say, your application is running well, it's running on these different clusters, it's running on-prem, it's running in the cloud, and you can even see your clusters and kind of manage them piece by piece. And then one last thing on the Unified Management Hub is it's not only for GKE, as I mentioned earlier, it's also for any Kubernetes conforming cluster. It can be integrated here and managed. And you can see, in this image on the right side, different clusters that are here, whether they're running on-prem and GKE, whether they're GKE specific clusters, or they're just your own cluster that you brought and want to manage with Google Cloud. And so I spoke a little bit about serverless anywhere. So CloudRun for Anthos is a managed serverless product. It's based on Knative, so it's compatible with Knative, and it runs Knative on top of Kubernetes. That allows you to scale your containerized application from 0 to whatever number. So imagine you have a web application. You want to run your web application, but you don't want to be so concerned about scaling it up or down. Sometimes you have crazy scale, but when it's the middle of the night or it's not being used, you don't want to be paying for those resources. Well, CloudRun, you give it your containerized application and you set it up, and then it will manage based on the amount of workload, the amount of users that are trying to access your application. We'll scale it up from 0 to whatever number and down. It supports HTTP and gRPC protocols. It natively handles DNS resolution, so you don't have to be concerned about that. And it runs absolutely anywhere Anthos runs. So think about serverless and the ability to be able to run serverless applications and how much of an interest that is. Well, previously you would be able to do this in your cloud. Well, now you can run it in any cloud on top of Anthos to be able to deliver these capabilities and be able to scale up and down your application as necessary. This is one of my favorite items, Anthos Config Management. And it's often overlooked initially when customers are deploying applications on top of Kubernetes. So going back to our example of, I have an application that needs to be deployed across multiple different clusters, and I just have multiple different clusters. Well, how do I ensure that each cluster has the same environment, and that when my application wants a load balancer in this environment or a configuration in this environment, that it's available and it actually works? Anthos Config Management is a GitOps automation suite, provides policy and configuration at scale. So the way this works is it allows customers to use Git to manage your environment. So you take your environment that you want to be set up, you figure out your policies, you figure out how you're going to manage it. Like, are you going to allow customers to run privilege, or you're not going to allow them to run privilege? And you set it up once. You set up, these are my policies. You check it into Git, which you can be version managed, so you know who's making changes. And then Anthos will implement those changes for you inside of all of your clusters. The Anthos control plane will take those Git repos, will then see if there's any changes, we'll implement them into your cluster. So you're getting like the full CI/CD lifecycle for your infrastructure. So you're able to have consistent environments. You can have 10 clusters, 100 clusters, or 1,000 clusters. They'll all get the same environment. They'll all get the same consistent experience from a policy standpoint. And if any of the users tries to make a change on the cluster or inside of the application that is detrimental to the platform or against your policy or against your regulations, you can actually go and reinforce the policies automatically, which ACM will allow you to do. So, an easy example that I see with customers is when you're using Anthos Service Mesh and you want to be able to secure your workloads using MTLS, you might want to say, I only want to allow MTLS on this application. Well, typically, if you have multiple clusters or you want to stop people from turning that off, how would you do that? And so ACM allows you to do that by saying, my policy is on this application, I want to always have MTLS, and you can be guaranteed that that policy is going to be rolled out to your clusters. And if somebody tries to turn it off, they won't be able to because of this config management. Speaking about
Hey,
ASM,
Sholom.
yes,
Hello,
yes,
it's Ron Gerber. I had a quick question.
yes.
Stuart from Wells Fargo, previously with the New York Stock Exchange and ICE, very immersed in these technologies, was wondering if Anthos has a product like, or has an offering like AWS Outpost, where for some very high latency, tremendously sensitive applications, you want to have some of that computing capabilities literally on-prem. Is that part of the roadmap or possible?
Yeah, so that's available today. So let me differentiate between the two. Anthos, so AWS Outpost, really strong offering that's able to deliver physical hardware on-prem that you can run in your infrastructure and deliver some of those capabilities. Anthos offers a pure software approach to that same concept. So you don't need to buy any special hardware. You can run it on-prem in your environment, and you have multiple different options. Like I mentioned earlier, you can run it on top of vSphere, which most customers have, and that'll run the entire stack in your environment. You can run it on top of non-vSphere, so you can just use bare metal servers that have Linux installed, and then you can put Anthos on top of it, and again get all of these capabilities on-prem in your data center. And then even more recently, we allow you to get some of those capabilities slightly less, also on-prem, by just bringing any Kubernetes cluster that you have. So that's the differentiation between Anthos and other industry leaders that are out there, is that Anthos takes the approach of software only because it gives more flexibility. You know, getting hardware and getting specific hardware is more difficult. So here we're allowing customers to use Anthos in any environment, and we support all these capabilities, really wherever you are. So thanks for asking that question, Ron, and whoever it was that asked it originally, because that's a really excellent question. It kind of comes to the core capabilities of what we deliver.
And Sholom, one thing to add to that, what is missing is that when you take a look at our infrastructure and you pair that with your infrastructure on-prem, then that removes some of the constraints that you may see from having to use other hyperscaler solutions to be able to take advantage of the things that we're discussing here with ASM, with the service mesh. So there's a lot more context behind that. And for the sake of time, Sholom, I'll let you continue.
Yes.
And what we'll also do is behind the scenes, I'll send an email to Stuart, who's part of Wells Fargo's cloud networking smart people group. And I'll arrange so you, Sholom, and Wayne can follow up with him and the Wells Fargo team.
Excellent. Thank you, Ron, and thank you, Stuart.
Yeah, spent a lot of time with Wells Fargo in my former life, so happy to help out.
Great. And so Anthos Service Mesh, one of the final pieces of Anthos provides service management and a single pane of glass for these capabilities, whether it's logging, metrics, and SLO monitoring. So taking a view of the holistic service, like as you may know, right? Kubernetes allows you to run microservices. Microservices means your services are spread out, whereas they used to maybe run in a single box, and you can manage this box. Now they're all over the place. And so being able to get a strong understanding of what's my metrics, how long does it take to go from this service to this service? Are there any bottlenecks? What's the full throughput of my application? So being able to deliver that, being able to understand service identity, encryption, being able to deliver native out-of-the-box encryption, super easy with Anthos Service Mesh, literally like just a single command. I do it all the time. And then being able to do advanced traffic management. So I may have the need to roll out a new application. I want to roll it out to 20% of my user base. How do I do that? ASM allows me to do that. ASM allows me to deliver that advanced routing and advanced load balancing. And on the operational efficiency, thinking about things like logging, monitoring, APM. So we have our cloud monitoring suite that lives in Google Cloud that is able to deliver all these capabilities for Kubernetes, but it's built into the stack. So you don't need to program or wire in connectivity to Google's Kubernetes engine to be able to send logs and send metrics and understand everything, but you can see things in cloud monitoring automatically because it's wired into GKE. And going back to the earlier statement about being able to run in other clouds, you know, in Anthos 1.7 that came out recently, one of the things we offered is the ability to now collect logs, monitoring, and APM from all your other clusters. So whether they're living on-prem in other cloud hyperscalers, you're able to collect all this information into a single place, which most customers want to be able to do, to be able to see, you know, logs, be able to see metrics, be able to get a holistic view of all their environments together. Now, hybrid AI for Anthos is the ability to provide our hybrid cloud ML, AI and ML training and inferencing capabilities. What we're able to do is, you know, many customers come to Google for our AI and ML capabilities, yet historically, those capabilities have been locked in Google Cloud. Well, we've been able to unlock them using Anthos. So we're able to deliver them on-prem to be able to say there's a one-click deployment of pre-trained AI models that could actually be deployed into an edge environment, into your data centers to be able to deliver ML and AI seamlessly. I work with customers that are always trying to unlock AI and ML. And again, the best use of this is tied to data. So you're going to run AI and ML applications on existing data. Well, that means you have to be close to that data, and Anthos enables you to bring your models close to your data, be able to run them, be able to manage them, be able to upgrade them and update them and manage them kind of along the way. And the way we are able to do that is with a marketplace for Anthos. So, you know, many of you may be familiar with marketplaces and the ability to do one-click deploys into a marketplace, but that's always been locked into a single environment, whether it's on-prem, whether it's other clouds. We're able to deliver this across the board. So again, because you're living in every cloud, because you're living in on-prem, you're able to use Marketplace for Anthos to do click to deploy, pre-integrated Kubernetes applications to your Anthos environments. As I mentioned earlier, we also offer OneClick VM Migration. So thinking about how do I get to Anthos, I have many VMs. They're deployed onto Windows VMs, or they're living inside of Linux VMs. How do I migrate them? So we're able to migrate VMs running on VMware, AWS, or Azure into containers managed by GKE in real time. And again, these containers can live in any environment because Anthos can live in any environment, truly unlocking the capabilities of cloud so that you don't have to choose, but you can really run anywhere. And we capitalize on increased resource utilization. So think about how many Windows VMs are running idle in your environment. Could you just pack them onto a single container host, and how much more efficient would your environment get? And this supports both legacy Linux and Windows VM applications. So kind of coming back to what we started with, you know, there was a financial services company where the director of enterprise DevOps said he saw a 13x improvement because he was able to adopt Anthos and was able to therefore get a 13x improvement on time to market, because getting from doing monthly or bi-weekly deployments to an environment where you can do deployments rapidly is something that Anthos enables customers to do. 300 services. There was a head of digital engineering at a financial services industry where this was the quote that they gave. Centralized control with Anthos is a big benefit. They were able to set up a configuration once and use it in 300 services. Kind of going back to that ability of Anthos config management, and being able to take a centralized view is so critical to being able to be successful with Kubernetes and Kubernetes management. Sometimes it's overlooked initially, and then customers down the road have to kind of untangle and figure out, well, I have a huge mess here. Instead of VM sprawl, I have cluster sprawl. I have clusters all over the place. I don't know how, you know, where they're up to from a configuration standpoint. So Anthos is kind of able to streamline that and really lock that in.
And Sholom, we're just at time here. If you wanted to wrap. Awesome.
Yep. I think it's Yep. So there's a pricing slide. We can share pricing is on our website of what it costs and the different options. So I'll kind of skip that. But these are some of the customers that we work with. I work with many customers that are leveraging Anthos to deliver these capabilities. But it's in all industries, in all verticals, customers are adopting Anthos for these for application modernization. So finally, just to kind of tie it together, why GCP and Anthos for app modernization? So put your compute next to your data with purpose-built hybrid and multi-cloud platform based on open technologies created by Google. These Kubernetes is open, Istio, which is Anthos Service Mesh, open. All of our capabilities are open source, so you're not locking yourself in. They're open technologies, and they're purpose-built to be able to deliver it on any environment, hybrid and multi-cloud. You can achieve consistency, security, and connectivity at scale with innovative technologies that we enable. And you can get a value-added experience for new and existing workloads by using Migrate for Anthos, as well as being able to deliver these new capabilities. And then take advantage of Google Cloud capabilities like hybrid AI and BigQuery on Anthos outside of Google Cloud. And then finally, experience an end-to-end partnership focused on your long-term success. Those are the reasons I see customers choosing GCP and Anthos for app modernization. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them after, and Ron can share my information.